Good morning. Welcome to Palms. Everybody give a shout for all of our first-time guests today. Hey, you get to be a visitor one time because when you're here, you're family, man. Easy to get in and hard to get out, man. We love you. We're so grateful to be here. So grateful to be with you. I'm Brandon Shank. I'm the lead pastor here at Palms, and we're just excited, man. Except for all that God is doing in your life and in so many lives around us. I mean, I have conversations all the time with people, both locally and online, and it just seems like God's doing the same thing in so many different places. So it's so awesome to be a part of that. We start a new series today, and these series we built the second half of our calendar coming into the summer, about April, May, and we built the sermon series and kind of the feel for the rest of the year that we wanted to go. And I'm excited about these next couple of weeks because I think that it fits a lot of where many of us are at. You might feel like you're in a storm. You might feel like this story isn't going to have a great ending, but the Bible tells us that God works the good for those who love and serve him. Like everything works out for the good of those who love and serve him. And today we start a new series called Beautiful Endings. How many of you are excited about a beautiful ending in your life? Not just the end. But yeah, go ahead. You can make some noise for that. That's a good thing. Yeah. But the story you're in right now, there is an ending, and it has a good ending, and it has a promising ending. Now, I do have to preface, it may not be the ending that you want. It may not be the results that you've prayed for. See, the Bible tells us to pray for not my will, but yours be done. And how a lot of times we go into fasting and prayer, and just because you pray for your will, fasting isn't the magic genie where you rub the bottle and then you get what you want because you fasted. It's saying, God, I want your will and not mine. And oftentimes the ending's not the problem. It's usually wanting what God has over what we want. And so the beautiful endings is about submitting to God and resting in what he is and who he is and what he has, and saying, God, I want your will to be done. I want the things in my life to be consistent with what it is that you're doing. But how many of you know, whatever that is, whatever that project may be, whatever that passion may be, whatever that thing is, if you don't start it, you can't finish it. Right? There has to be a process where there's an original start piece. Procrastinators oftentimes struggle with the starting. Is anybody that's listening or watching willing to raise your hand in the presence of others or by yourself and say, I am a procrastinator and I am willing? Man, that was a little overwhelming. I think about 3/4 of y'all raised your hands. We need some more visionaries up in this piece. Well, too many visionaries isn't good. How many of you are the finisher? You're more of the vision. Well, visionaries are starters, but I'll tell you this, procrastinators usually are finishers. Do you know, I've never had that much overwhelming response in the 11 years I've pastored here. I didn't know procrastinators were that edgy. Man, y'all are irritable. Visionaries like myself, how many of y'all are more starters than finishers? I'm the only one. Great. I've got two. I have three. We haven't done a very good job of building a well-rounded family here at Palms. Visionaries are starters. We like to vision it and dream it, and we want you to finish it. That's how I'm built. I like to build things. You know, I'm gifted in building things. I'm gifted in creating things. With Virginia Beach Academy, God didn't tell me to run it. He told me to build it. You know, we got the building, I got the funding, we built the facility, and then I had people run it. I'm not capable. I'm not connected enough. It's not my passion. But God said, build this for the community with this church, this building. I had the vision when we came in here, and some of our staff, we talked through things, but we knew like this was the right spot. I had a vision for what it would look like. I'm standing in a promise of God. I'm standing in something he gave me in 2020. He told me when we were at the office of 1,200 square feet, shooting our services all over the world. He said, he gave me this picture of like Jimmy Fallon late night studio. And that's what our church building would look like when we got to that place. And I mean, here we are. You know, he was like, I'm not asking you to build a church. I'm asking you to build a studio. You're an online church with a physical location. Like this whole concept of reaching the internet. And so there's these pieces to us that when God calls us to something, he might give you a picture or a vision, but if you can't start it, you'll never finish it. There has to be a process that kicks in. So what if it's not as much about stopping something, but just about going? Just about actively pursuing something, going to the uncomfortable maybe. How many of y'all you would say fall is your favorite season? So procrastinators like fall, I see. You know why y'all love fall? Can I tell you why we like fall? The reason we like fall is because summer is pretty busy. I like fall because of the sweaters. You're in Virginia Beach. You don't wear sweaters in the fall. You get mad. Put one on, and by 10 o'clock, you're angry because it's 83 degrees. I had somebody write me last week, man, this from one of my sermon clips, like, this is awesome, but we all know that you're wearing a sweater and you're wearing a sweatshirt in September in Virginia Beach, and it wasn't cool enough for a sweatshirt. So yeah, I'm a rebel. I just wear it anyway. But how many of you know that fall is great because it means pumpkin spice, chili, sweatshirts, bonfires, corn mazes, and sitting on the couch watching football? It's a time to kind of pull back and relax a little bit. That's why we like fall. It's a comfort. It's the comforts of fall. It's the comforts of this season. It's the comfort of the feel and the way that it goes and the way that it should feel. It's a little bit less, it may be busier, but it feels a little bit more comfortable. Is that fair? That's what the fall is. But in our life, it should be hard to rest. It should be difficult for us to rest and relax if we aren't actually resting in the fullness of what God has for our life. We shouldn't be able to sit down and rest and relax knowing that we're not walking in what God's actually asked us to do. There shouldn't be an ability to just have this ultimate comfort by your fireside with your little candle going and your little drink with your foo-foo whip on top. And now I like foo-foo whip. My mother-in-law bought me a frother for my birthday. My mother-in-law is the most practical gift giver you'll ever meet. She got me an electric toothbrush when I was a senior in high school. Yes, a senior in high school. And you know what? To this day, I have not stopped buying electric toothbrushes. They're the best thing. My dentist is like, man, you don't even need to come in here. I was like, that's what I'm saying. Like, these things are great. She brought me a frother. It has changed my coffee drinking life. The foo-foo whip. I don't even know what foo-foo means. I guess it means that I'm not a man, and that's a shame on anybody who would think that. My whole point is there are things that bring comforts into our life, but I can't rest if I don't know that I'm right where God has me. That doesn't mean you're not in process. That doesn't mean that you're not walking into something. What it means is that you are in process of something greater. And we always chase this something greater. A lot of times we talk about the story of Abraham, how Abraham left everything and he went to the land of the unknown and he took his wife and his livestock and all of his employees and he went into this land of the unknown. But have you ever read about Abraham's father? You ever read about how Abraham got to the point where he was going to the land of the unknown? I'm going to read it to you. It's in Genesis chapter 11. In verse 31, the Bible has just told us about the Tower of Babel. For those who aren't familiar with that story, it's where the people of the earth thought that they were strong enough and powerful enough and wise enough to build a tower that would reach the heavens. And the Bible is very clear. It says, so God came down to meet them, showing that you're never going to reach him. The only way to reach him is with our heart, with our desires. It's not with a building that we can build. It was a humility. It was a showing of God is still God. And so it went on this genealogy after the tower was built. People were separated all over the world. But Abraham's father was mentioned in Genesis chapter 11 because the story of Abraham is getting ready to take off. And it says, one day, Terah took his son Abram, his daughter-in-law Sarai, who was Abram's wife, and his grandson Lot, his son Haran's child, and moved away from Ur of the Chaldeans. He was headed, now listen to this part, he was headed for the land of Canaan, but they stopped at Haran and settled there. Terah lived for 205 years and died while still in Haran. Now, I would like to propose the idea that there could have been a lot more written about Terah. There could have been a lot more written about his life. In fact, I would like to argue that Terah has had a lot of stories that we could have written about him, but we don't know anything. It just says he died at 205 years old. What it's saying is he lived a long, physically prosperous, rich, well-known, vibrant life. That's what we know about him. But the thing that's interesting is the Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 11 that he took his son, he took his grandson, he took his son's wife, he took the family that he had left. He had just gone through the loss of a child. Haran was his son, and his son died, and so that's why he took Lot with him. And there was this feeling that he was responsible for his son's child. That's why Abram took Lot, because he was responsible for his nephew. That was his brother's child. He felt this responsibility. And he took his whole family and they went, and it says, but they were headed for the land of what? What did I read? Canaan. They're headed for this land that's vast. This land that's somewhat unknown, and there's still opportunity that God was taking him to the land of Canaan. But it says that when he got back home, see, his son had the same name of the place that he stopped. It would make me think that there's some deep family ties in Haran. There's some deep family connection in this place. And it says that he gets there and he stopped. And when he stopped, he started to settle. Eventually he would die there. It's very interesting. If you go back and read it, it says those exact words. It says that he went and he was headed for the land of Canaan, but they stopped. The most dangerous thing this time of year is candy pumpkins and candy corn. I know some of y'all hate them, but you're probably the same ones that are procrastinators, so I don't care what you say. Just kidding. I'm outnumbered 10-1 in this room by the procrastinators. The candy pumpkins, man, my wife has these little jar in our kitchen, and I don't ever just stop and eat like 10 candy pumpkins in a day. But what I find is that as I walk, I'm not even looking for a candy pumpkin. I'm not looking for anything remotely close to sweets. I'm walking by it to get a paper plate for something completely different, and I grab a pumpkin. I throw it back. Not a big deal. The problem is I walk by that jar of beautiful little pumpkins. Let's go put water in my dog's dish. I don't need a candy pumpkin. Hey, what you do is grab a couple of them things, you roll them around, throw them back. I'm 4 in. And I haven't even, that's not dessert, it's just candy pumpkins just in there. It's a problem. Like, at least wrap, they're not wrapped. It's the devil's candy. They're not wrapped. There's no warning label that you're eating straight high fructose corn syrup. This will end your life. There's nothing. My wife doesn't warn me. She doesn't talk to me in advance of like, this is going to be a tough season for you, but I need to encourage you. She doesn't do nothing. She puts these little beautiful pumpkins and candy corn out in these dishes, leaves them open. And you know you can't leave them sit because then they go bad. And so I don't like to waste. I like to waste money. I don't like to waste resources. So what do? I eat them little suckers. Before you know it, I've got something heated up in the microwave. I'm grabbing a couple of these. Getting ready to eat anyway. Throw them back. I'm 8 candy pumpkins in, and I'm not even at lunchtime. Like, what is wrong with me? How many of you know that food is a great comfort? Nobody's raising your hand. You are so judgmental today. Not me. I'm a spinach and chicken breast kind of guy. You guys are lying to yourselves. Listen, food is comfort. Have you ever gone through it? Please, this is not one to raise your hand on. This is personal. You're going through a season in your life, you're like, wow, I don't look as healthy as I did now. But you realize how stressful your life was, and you realize you took everything around you to try to create a place of peace. Like for me, as much as going into a gym and running as hard as I can, trying to make myself throw up, is medicinal at times, I'd much rather be sitting on the couch eating a whole bunch of candy pumpkins. Why? Because it's comfort. The problem with comfort is that comfort is very dangerous. Because comfort is created for us to settle. Comfort has its way of making us settle into the familiar. And the scariest thing you will ever do in your life is walk into the things that are unfamiliar. The places that you don't have the relationships. The places where your family is not connected. The places where your DNA has never traveled. Nobody from your family exists. Moving with you and your family to a place, going to a place where nothing exists. This is a familiar meeting the promises of God. So what it says they do. It says, well, they were going to the land of Canaan, but they stopped. It was familiar. Family was familiar. The middle school was familiar. Elementary school was familiar. That's the 7-Eleven that me and my homies used to go to after we played basketball, right there on those courts that are behind there. The light shut off at 10, right? Like there's this familiarity with things, and we get super, super comfortable, and so we settle in. And then all the changes you want to make in your life aren't being made. Why? Because things are going well. Things are going good. So what does it say? It says they stopped there. And then on the way to Canaan, what does it say that Terah did? It says then they settled. So they didn't just stop, then they started to settle, which means now we're actually not going to go back. How do I know if I settle? Well, I would say, is it easier than to keep going, or is it easier just to stop? What's easier for you? The hardest thing for me is knowing that I can't do now what I used to do in the gym. Now, I was never a power lifter. I was never a guy trying to pump up weight. It's funny because at a staff retreat this year, I actually put up more on a 1-rep bench than I ever have in my life, and I haven't benched for like 10 years. I think it just shows you as you get older, you just get better looking. You just get stronger. Everything starts to increase if you just eat your spinach every day. And so there's this piece of you where you're like, yeah, man, I'm better than I used to be. But the reality is your back hurts worse than it ever did. Your knees hurt worse than it ever did. Your body is going to deteriorate because that's the level of humanity. Every day you are deteriorating. You can do what you can to try and stop it, but you will not stop death. It is imminent. All right? Can we make an agreement with that? As good as you want to look and as fast as you want to be, every day it is imminent. And so right now I work out with a weighted vest. Every day I work out with a weighted vest, and it's one that I can't take off. It's not something that I've asked to put on. It's not something that I wish that I had. It's back in the day, I never worked with one because I know one day I'm going to have one that I'm going to try to get off. I am working on my weighted vest, but the reality is there are things that I can't do now that I could do 10 years ago. And you say, well, if you just work at it, you're going to be in better shape when you're 50 than when you're 40. Although that may be true, there will be things that you could do when you're 30 that you could never do when you're 50. If you were that level of athlete, there is just some physical things in your life, no matter how hard you train, Father Time will show you he is the boss. Right? 2 weeks ago, my wife turned around real quick to see something, pulled a muscle on her shoulder. She's like, oh, man down. I was like, what's wrong with you? She's like, I don't know. Can't move my neck. It's gone. Y'all get to a certain age, you're like, man, I want to get out of this bed, but I know the minute my feet hit that floor, my lower back's going to hurt. Why? Because it does. Some of y'all have played hard sports in your youth. I'm not saying that we can't work out, we can't get better, we can't be different. But what I am saying is that a lot of times you have to choose your hard, and we oftentimes settle for the path of least resistance in our life. And so just like he said, well, we stopped here. Why? Because it was comfortable. It was familiar. And so we stopped what God actually wanted us to do. And then what was the next step? Well, it was the path of least resistance. So that's the path that I took. Listen, I am faithful at getting into the gym, and I'm faithful at making myself go out. There are days, I used to love it. You put music on, you just go like, man, this is my time. Now I get out of bed, I'm like, I hate everything about you, Brandon. You eat too many candy pumpkins. You should be ashamed of yourself. My back hurts. I'm getting my workout gear on. I'm walking down the steps. I'm like, I hope my dog doesn't hear me because I got to put him out before I go work out. I'm going downstairs and nobody's up yet. I'm like, I'm going to get a little drink of water before I go over there. And walking down the steps to go over there, I'm like, this is so stupid. Why do I got to work out, God? Why can't you supernaturally just put me in decent shape and I never have to touch a weight again in my life? And I get over there and the whole time working out, at the end of it, I'm like, oh, thank God. That was great. I'm so glad I did it. It's a fight. It is a 40-minute fight to get me in the gym. Why? Because I don't enjoy it like I used to. I got too much going on, too many things in my mind. Now, there's some days I'm like, oh, what a fresh feeling. But it doesn't work like that all the time. It's discipline. And this isn't about working out. This is me trying to tell you, me getting in the gym is not the path of least resistance. I don't enjoy it. And there are some of you in here, you work me, I'd be puking on the floor before I finished your workout. I couldn't do what you do. And the same is true for you. You couldn't do what I do. My point is this. I don't enjoy it like I used to, but I'm as committed as I used to be. Because it's the path that is the right path for me to go where God's taking me in my life. It does things for me mentally. It sets a bar for my family. But honestly, you know what it does? It humbles me. It humbles me every time I go in there. I'm asking you in your life, what are you doing right now that's really just the path of least resistance? That God is saying, I have more for you, but you just keep taking the easy road. I have somebody this week I was talking to on the phone, and they were telling about these dreams they have financially and what they want to own and what they want to do and goals. And I said, you'll never get there. I said, you'll never get there unless you're the one running the business. And they said, what? Like, you ain't going to work for somebody that's going to give you all that. I said, that's why they own it and you don't. Because they paid the price that you're not. I said, they ain't gonna, well, I just want to work for a business that pays me like this and I got this kind of freedom. It does not exist. And they were just like, well, eventually I work my way up. I am telling you, unless you're the owner, you will not ever have this type of freedom and finances that you're asking for. That's why a lot of people never get there, because they don't want to do the work to get there. It's not that everybody has the gift or only a few people have that gift. No, some people are willing to work in a way others aren't. And I'm not talking about showing up and working 15-hour shifts. I'm talking about carrying weight that nobody else wants to carry. It's the path of least resistance. Does this make sense what I'm trying to say? It's a path of least resistance. And I'm not saying every business builder is a good business and everything that falls isn't great. I'm just simply trying to tell you there is a reason that not a lot of people do those things, because it's not easy. And it's something that you have to endure and you have to fight through the hard times. And it doesn't matter if you're a $100,000 company or a multi-million-dollar company or a Fortune 500. There will be times you have to battle and you're going to be alone. And you think, well, I'm in debt now at $200,000. When you're a multi-million-dollar company, you're going to be $25 million in debt. You ain't paying for cash or everything, because good entrepreneurs use the bank's money to make money. My point is, it's not the path of least resistance. It's the path of most weight. And when God calls you to something great, he's not asking you to take the path of least resistance. He's asking you to take the path that he chose you and shows you, I'm a lamp to your feet, light to your path, you got to walk. And so what does Terah say? It says they went out to the land of Canaan. This is Abraham's father. Abraham is on a journey with his dad. They go to the land of Canaan, but it says they stop in Haran. It was a seaport. It was a place that was well known. It was a big trade route. And it says they stopped. And the very next thing it says is they did what? They settled. It says he stopped and he settled there. And then it gives you the obituary. Terah lived 205 years and died. And I love what the scripture says. While still in Haran. Why would it say died in Haran? Rest in peace. No, it says he died while still in Haran. Why would it say that? Because that wasn't what God had for him. That wasn't where he was supposed to end up. That wasn't where his legacy was supposed to end. He was supposed to go, but he was a father mourning the loss of a son. He couldn't get over it, and he landed in a place where he knew people. He had friends and family and relationships and connections, and it just got so comfortable for him, and he had money he didn't need for anything, so he just settled there. He just stayed. Never went anywhere else. How many of you are settling? God's called you to something and it's just too scary for you. He's asked you to take a step out. And he's saying, I'm pushing you, because the title of today's message is actually the end starts with the beginning. You have to have a start before you can have a beautiful ending. It doesn't just mean I'm the byproduct of somebody else's abuse. I'm the byproduct of something somebody has said. I'm the byproduct of some pain. No, it's saying there are some stories, and God will renew and redeem all those stories, but there are stories in your life that God has that are meant for you, but you're going to take the first step before the story can be written. There's a place of no man's land in God's stories that he wants to write for your life, but you have to take those steps. So he stopped, he settled. Then what's the third thing that happened? What's the third thing? What happened after he stopped and settled? He died. He died. I personally struggle the most. You wouldn't know this, but I make decisions in a lot of areas of my life. And so there's a lot of times I don't want my wife to ask. I want her just to tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. Because at the end of the day, that's what I'm going to do anyway. I'm going to tell you my opinion, but really we both know it don't matter. What do you want me to do? I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. And back in the day, she was like, well, I don't really care, this. Now she's like, I want you to do this, and this. I'm like, that's my girl. That's what I'm talking about. Just tell me. I'm in. A couple of weeks ago, we had just talked about we need to stop, our family will go through chips. I got 4 boys, so a bag of chips will last 1 kid and a half. It's like we just got to stop buying chips. They just keep piling up. We keep having parties at our house. Everybody leaves, and there's 38 bags of chips left, and we just got to stop buying chips. And we said, yeah, we're going to stop buying chips. Tomorrow it's like quinoa and tuna day. Like we're going hard. We're going to eat we're going walleye and salmon. I don't know. We're going to eat. We're changing our ways around here. No more chips. I said, man, I'm with you. I feel the presence of God as we say this right now. No more chips in Jesus' name. We're done with chips. But I'm bad at making decisions. I've told you this. And so my wife sent me to the grocery store on a very specific mission. I didn't have to go in and buy a lot. I had to go in and buy very few things. They were very clear where to find them, what they were. I was to go in, grab them, and get out. The mission was very simple. Very simple. And I don't like making decisions. I will make them. But the fact that my wife said, this is where it's at, this is what you got to do, I was thinking, man, this is easy. I might not even park the car. I might leave that thing right in the middle of the street. This is going to be so fast. So I walked into the grocery store. I got through the doors that automatically open. And right there in this beautiful display was a bunch of beautiful chips. And do you know what the sign said? You're not going to believe this when I tell you. In fact, you might think, how did I miss this? It said, buy 2, get 3 free. They're giving away chips. I'm looking around to see if the general manager, I'm thinking they okey-doked you, homie. You're about ready to go bankrupt and lose your job and probably your wife and kids, because we're going to take the store for all you're worth. So I'm looking around. I just can't believe what I'm seeing. So immediately I do what any good man would do. I grab a cart because this ain't a quick carry on, carry out. Get my chips. I feel the adrenaline. I feel the temptation of Satan, and I have given in 100%. I was all in. I knew I was sinning at that point in my own heart, and I was like, God, I'm going to need you to forgive me for this after I finish eating them, because I'm going to eat all of them. And I go and I get what I thought my wife wanted, and I go back to the house, and she's like, so what you got? And I start putting everything down. And my wife, I put the chips down, and she just smiles from ear to ear. She's like, you sucker. I said, hey, it's 2 for $3. 2, and then I get 3 free. She's like, they got you. I was like, what do you mean they got me? Like, we just leveled up as a family financially because of this deal. And then she asked me for something that she'd asked me to get, and I said, I'm sorry, I forgot to get that item. Why? I couldn't think straight. My adrenaline was at an all-time high. I had just taken all the couponers to town. I didn't pray for this. God just opened the door. But my point is, how many of you know in your life, we love comfort, but we get so comfortable that it kills us? What happens is you see those deals and you keep buying them, even though you made a commitment. And next thing you know, you're getting stents put in your heart because they say, well, it's not really artery blockage. These kettle cooked chips are actually stuck in your vein. Like, jalapeno? Yeah, that's me. My bad. My point is, we stop. And when we stop, it's because something's familiar. It feels good. And we settle because it's the path of least resistance in our life. And then we usually die there because the comfort eventually will kill us. And so what is God saying? He's saying, don't stop and settle for anything less than the fullness of God's promises. Obedience has no shortcuts, and you can't reason your way around the hard route. In fact, Joshua was a leader that when the Israelites came out of the promised land and they took down Jericho, Joshua was the leader that was a part of that. And Joshua told the people in Joshua chapter 2, verse 2, he said, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says. Long ago, your ancestors, including Terah, the father of Abraham and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates, and they worshiped other gods. So why would he stop and settle and die there? Well, I'm a Christian. That you might think, well, I'm a Christian, that kind of thing. No, it's because God wasn't his God. There was other things in his life. There was other relationships in his life that meant more to him than following the voice of his king. And if God is anything but first place in our life, then he is second, which makes him one of many gods. It doesn't mean, well, I just struggle with my faith. I think it's an interesting word how we use that a lot, because what it is, it's an excuse for us to not be obedient. It's not a matter of struggling with your faith. It's if God is the only God, then he is the one you listen to and the only one that you listen to. And that means you will be obedient consistently. And he's saying there was other gods and there was these things. So his father died at 205 years old. So God speaks to Abram. And we just said Abram takes all of his stuff and all of his family and all of his goods and belongings, and they just go. But what it says in chapter 12, verse 1, it says, the Lord said to Abram, leave your country. Everybody say, leave. Leave your country, your relative, and your father's family. And some of you could stop right there. You're like, I ain't leaving my mama. Not doing it. Well, then your mom is now a God who's keeping you from your God. A God doesn't have to mean it's somebody, it doesn't mean it's Baal, it doesn't mean it's Muhammad, it doesn't mean that it's Buddha. It could be anything that takes the place of God in your life. Anything that voice is now secondary to you becomes a God. It becomes something that has more influence. And God's a jealous God. And he is saying, listen, I need you to leave everything that is connected, every relationship that is connected, everything that is familiar, where the GPS on your phone will not go. I need you to leave it. And then he says, I will go to the land that I will show you. And then he makes a promise to him. And this is the way God works. When he calls you somewhere, you will have something deep within you that you will have trouble believing because it's too good to be true, and it might be hard to believe, but the reason that's there is because he knows you're going to need it while you're fighting the battles to get to the promise. You're going to need the promise in your heart because he's taking you somewhere that's bigger than what you can ever think, ask, or imagine. And in verse 2, it says, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous. That doesn't sound like something my God would say. That's arrogant. That's pompous. The nerve of you to think you'll be famous. God told him he was going to be famous. To us, it means money and fame. To him, it meant honor. It meant authority. It meant influence. So I'm going to make you famous. And then he says, and you will be a blessing to others. And then he makes another. He says, I'm going to bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. And all the families on earth will be blessed through you. This is a massive calling. All of the families on earth. This sounds crazy to anybody else? Everybody on earth is going to be blessed through me. All I need to do is take my wife and my livestock and all the people that work for me and all of my stuff and just head this direction. He said, yes, a lot of responsibility. Great nation, bless you and make you famous. You'll be a blessing to others. All the families on earth will be blessed through you. This just seems crazy to me. But I love what it says in verse 4. It says, so Abram departed. Everybody say he went. He departed as the Lord instructed. And this is a part that you could preach an entire series for a year on this next part of it. And Lot went with him. Did you read in there where God said, I want you to take your wife, and I want you to take your livestock, and I want you to take your money, and I want you to go? No, take Lot with you. God never said that. And Lot would cause Abram a lot of trouble. They'd move into a land where Lot took the good part of the land, and it ended up being right next to Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot's wife would die. His daughters would have some relationships with them. It was a bad situation. Lot was a burden to Abram because God didn't tell him to take him. He said, I need you to go. But Abram felt the responsibility of taking people and taking them with them and making sure they were a part and making sure they were included, and felt bad for leaving family, and felt bad for walking in goodness, and felt bad for leaving his connections, and felt bad that Abram was financially set. He would have been the center of culture. He would have been a family that the city was built on, something that held tight. But God said, no, I have something for him, which means I have something for them. And I'm trying to help you understand today, what is God asking you to do that may be okay that you walk away from relationships that you feel like you have to help carry? The very things that you think are healthy for you may be the very things keeping you from what God has. God's not asking you to take weight. He's asking you to walk in obedience. Your responsibility is you and your spouse, and then your kids. And after that, there's nothing. God doesn't have this mandate, this biblical mandate about what it is next. No, he's saying, why is it that you won't say yes? Well, Lord, I've lived in this house forever. Or, oh, my family is doing this. Or, oh, God, we can make all these excuses. And God is saying, but what have I asked you to do? What have I asked from you? And it says he took Lot with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all his wealth. Everybody say all of it. His livestock and all the people he had taken into his household at Haran. So all these people Haran was a center of a lot of different cultures, but a lot of these people probably didn't really know much else. And he said he headed for the land of Canaan. You know what I love about this? He departed when the Lord told him. He was 75. He had every reason not to leave. His story was just getting started. He took everything with him, his nephew, his wife, his wealth, his livestock, people in his household, all expenses paid trip. And then it says that he headed for the land of Canaan. And this is the part that I want you to understand. I want to jump back to Genesis 11, wherever Terah took his family. What does it say in verse 11? Terah took his son Abram, his daughter-in-law Sarai, and his grandson Lot, and moved away. And he was headed for the what? He was headed for where? He was headed for Canaan. That's where he was going. And in verse 5 of chapter 12, it says, Abram took his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, and all his wealth and his livestock and people taking his household, and headed for where? Canaan. Abram was taking his family where God told Terah to take his. Abraham was just finishing what was started. Abraham was walking in what God had, and he was doing it so that the descendants behind him and that the nations would know that there is one God. In fact, Joshua I told you in Joshua chapter 2, verse 2, how he had referenced that Terah had served other gods and that these men weren't faithful. They weren't obedient to God. Well, if you fast forward in the book of Joshua to chapter 24, Joshua references Abraham and his obedience. And it says, but I took your ancestor Abraham from the land of the Euphrates and led him into the land of what? Canaan. And it says, and I gave him many descendants through his son Isaac. You have two men, same bloodline, years apart. One's a father, one's a son. One started the process, but he stopped when things got comfortable. He stopped when things got familiar. He stopped when things got difficult. He stopped whenever the relationships weren't feeling right anymore. He stopped whenever it felt no more like I'm not comfortable doing this anymore. And I would like to propose the idea that anxiety is keeping you from some of the greatest things God has for your life. We call it anxiety because we've named it a medical term, but the reality is some of you are so overwhelmed with anxiety that you're codependent in your marriages, where your husband or wife can't have a bad day without your anxiety losing its cool. That's fear. Anxiety is a fancy word for fear. It's a dependence on our situations. Anxiety is dependent on the relationships around us. Anxiety is dependent on the world to be a peaceful place. Anxiety is dependent on our past to not be too rugged or too ragged. Anxiety is dependent on our childhood memories being good. And if they're not, we don't trust anybody today. Anxiety is as we get older, we start to fear what everybody may do to us instead of knowing that God's brought us this far. Why would he fail me now? Anxiety is that when you're a young person, you fear being successful. When you become successful, you fear somebody stealing it. When you become old, you fear dying without a cause, or you fear dying, or you fear somebody stealing everything you have. Anxiety doesn't leave. It stays there as long as you allow it. And we have taken this term in our life, anxiety, and made it into a condition to where we feel like it's something we learn to live with instead of something that God's allowing us to conquer. Anxiety is a fear to keep you from what God has in your life. That is why it exists. Experiences shape your anxiety. Relationships have shaped your anxiety. Unsettling of things in your life have shaped the fact you have anxiety. But anxiety is either who you are or it's a part of your story. And you can determine that depending on how much you want to lean on God through it. You know, I used my childhood for many years. I needed a lot of things I had to go through and a lot of things I had to figure out and a lot of things I had to walk through. And I was talking about my childhood a lot and things, and that's where a lot of it came from. But I'll tell you this, it wasn't just my parents. It wasn't that they were these awful people. It wasn't just that I was sexually abused. It wasn't that. I'll tell you what it was. It was my parents. They were incredible people who, like all of us, are trying to figure it out. My kids will say the same things about me. The mom and dad were incredible. They were trying to figure it out. They know I love them, but they're gonna have stories where they're probably I might even start a counseling fund. I don't know. Maybe they're gonna need it. But my point is, anxiety is something, and it's real. But God forbid a pastor say anxiety is something we can overcome without psychologists. I know we need psychologists. I've been to them. They're phenomenal, but they're not God. They can help you with your mental state. They can help you see things you can't see. They provide great resources, and God will use them as a voice to help you walk through healing. I am a firsthand experience of that. But what they aren't is God. They're not the Holy Spirit. They're not the blood-bought Son of God. His name is Jesus. And they are not the power of the Holy Spirit. That is a sanctified, designated DNA of the King that cannot be duplicated. It is something that sets on you and that will have a way in your life when you allow him to flow freely. But when you stop and you settle, I promise you will die. It is a 100% factual consistency throughout Scripture. In your life, some of you are fighting for your spouse to get on the same page as you are spiritually. I am telling you, if you stop and you settle and you just decide to make ends meet, let's just agree to disagree. Agreeing to disagreeing is one of the worst things I have ever heard. It doesn't mean you're picking a fight. It just simply means I want resolve. The Bible is very clear. Not to have aught with all these people, but yet we keep stacking up with our spouse. Well, we'll just agree to disagree. You're telling me a person you sleep with physically, sexually, you're just going to agree to disagree? It's no big deal. No, that's called stuffing or avoiding. No, have a conversation. And what I'm trying to communicate to you is that we live in this overwhelming fear and this overwhelming heaviness, and we call it anxiety. And well, we fit into a group in society. And because we fit into this group, we feel like we have permission to have anxiety. When you get to the place with God in your healing process, you'll realize that there are so many terms the world tries to feed us that do nothing but captivate us, and they put us in captivity with the things that God wants to free us from. God does not have some prerequisite in the back room of saying, well, if they're a Christian, they're going to suffer with something consistently. Everybody talks about the thorn in Paul's side. Well, Paul had a thorn and he was a really righteous man. You don't even know what the thorn was. How you know he wasn't missing a couple toes? You don't know what it was. You don't know. There's a reason. You're human. That thorn might be your husband at times. That thorn may be your addiction to pornography at times. That thorn may be the fact that you hide smoking cigarettes out back when nobody's looking at times. That thorn may be the fact that you are emotionally unstable at times. Like, it could be anything. What I'm saying is that the world has packaged anxiety and fear in such a way that you become classified. The world is experts at making us classified into groups. So now I feel like I'm a part of something because I have anxiety. I've been diagnosed. I was diagnosed with suicidal depression. But can I tell you, I stand here in front of you today and I'm not suicidal and I'm not depressed. I am free by the blood of the Most High, by the blood of the Lamb. I am free in my life. Because can I tell you the truth? At 43 years old, I was diagnosed at 35. At 43 years old, if I was still suicidally depressed, I probably would just be gone. I wouldn't have made it. I couldn't live like that every day of my life. And thank God for somebody who had the education and the know-how and the sensitivity to the Holy Spirit to sit down with me and say, Brandon, and I paid them. This professional counselor, thank God for all the counselors that spoke into my life. I am so grateful. Their words resonate. I have them written down. They were a huge part of the healing process. But I can tell you, the healer was the reason that the healing process took place. He used people, but I am telling you, the fact that I stand here and I can tell you I don't have either one of those things now is evidence of the Holy Spirit in my life, because I wasn't willing to stop and I wasn't willing to settle into, I'm just anxiety ridden. I'm just going to have depression on off throughout my life. Heck no. I got 4 boys, and I don't want them laden with this stuff. I want them to see Dad walking in freedom. And if they ever walk through it, I want them to know I'm there, and I will walk with you, and I'm not going to be struggling with you. I'm not going to be codependent with you. You can be as low as you want to be, and Dad is here, because I'm telling you, there's a God, and He is a God of freedom. He is a God of love. He's a God of peace. He is a God of mission, and I will not stop and settle, because the generation behind me is counting on me and on you to not stop and settle, so they have to pick up the pieces. They're counting on us. They're counting on us. The end has to start with the beginning. Some of y'all just got to get up and start making the strides and get out of the comfort for the love of God. Even take a handful of pumpkins and eat them. That's okay. But move towards the promise that God has for your life. The problem isn't that your job resumes aren't being picked. The problem is that you're picking the wrong jobs. The problem isn't that you can't find your wife. The problem is maybe you're not ready. The problem is that you're not left alone and you're on your own and nobody cares. No, the problem is that you've done little to nothing to create relationship with people who do care. You see, what I'm saying is there is a level of responsibility for all of us when we go through things, and I have empathy for you, but what I can tell you is there's always somebody who cares. Always. There's always somebody. And my wife and I, we never approached it like this, but I want to ask you something. If you've been looking for a long time for what God has next, my question would be this: have you heard, not what am I educated in, what have I got my degree in? You could have been disobedient with all that. I'm asking you, have you heard the voice of God on exactly the type of job He wants you to have? So you're just blanket searching, hoping for the best. So you're doing what the world does. I'm asking you, have you heard the voice of a mighty God as to where you're supposed to be? Have you sensed it in your spirit? Well, Pastor, this is just what I enjoy doing. Have you heard the voice of God? that house that you've been praying to purchase, have you heard about where you should be living? Do you have a heart for a community? Or just looking for a really nice house that's got this amount of size? Has God placed in your heart a desire for a specific area? You see, everything with God matters more than it matters to us. It matters a lot more to him. I don't want to steal their thunder. I actually just thought about this when Corey and Lauren moved here. They were, Casey and I went with them to look at houses. And did we actually go in the house y'all ended up buying? We didn't, did we? No, so they came down, looked at houses, and they were heading back to Hagerstown, and there was a particular house they were praying for, but it was off. They get through the tunnel, and it popped back on. Because they knew, Lauren knew, this is your domain. This is something that I have in my heart to create a place for my husband and my children. Like she knew, I don't want to steal y'all's story if you ever want to tell this. But she's like, no, I know. Because God's saying, no, this is what I have for you. Take care of your boys and your husband. Like this is a place of hope and healing and a place where people will come to that are going to find hope. And she had a conviction in her heart. She knew this is what God put in her heart. And she told her, she's like, I'm not feeling them. And Casey was like, I get that. At the time, we lived on Hope Avenue, which was across from one of the deadliest projects in all of the city. And we didn't think of it like that. God told us, they're not your mission field, they're your neighbors. They ain't your mission field, these are people. And I never thought, I didn't want to leave. In fact, when we finally moved, it took me 2 weeks. I was depressed. My wife was depressed. Like, man, we just left. But I knew God said, hey, it's time to go. And I remember the story, Lauren tells it as they got to the tunnel, she just had this house on her heart, like God saying, this is where I have the community, the neighborhood. Because see what she didn't see was that the people sitting right behind them came from their neighborhood. The family right behind them, right today, came from their neighborhood. Their kids are connected in a community. See, we don't see the bigger picture. We just see what we want. We don't see what God actually does. We just see what we desire and what we think will make sense out here. And God is saying, don't stop and don't settle. Don't settle for a home that I have not put your heart in. Could you buy it? Sure. I'm not going to wreck all the loan and all the finances. No, it doesn't work like that. But I'm telling you, you can live here and I'll bless you. But if you wait for what I have, generations will change. And they are changing. So what I'm telling you is don't settle for having anxiety some of the time. Don't settle for being good until your spouse isn't good. Don't settle for, well, we're retired. We're just gonna cruise out like this. So then your kids get to pick up the things that you didn't do. The kids will have to fix what you broke. It's not about just not being wrong. I hope you don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is you are so valuable in the plans of God. You are so valuable, and it never stops until that breath is gone out of your lungs. You are so valuable in the pieces of the puzzle that when there's a piece missing, there will be someone make up for that piece, but it will never be the same. How much different would Abram's story been if he would have been in the land of Canaan and didn't have to take his family there? How much different would it have looked? I don't know. But what I do know is that he did it. And it's not that his father was a horrible person. We don't know how he died, if he still served a bunch of gods or if he found the real God, and that's how Abraham knew. We don't know all the details, but we knew that his son was the one that God built an entire country as far as as many as the sand on the seashore or stars in the sky. God built Abram's life based out of this man. So maybe he found, I don't know. But what I can tell you is that the end that you dream about starts with obedience today. The end that you have in mind, it starts today. Don't let it sit. Don't let it simmer. Beautiful endings is about a God who promises to never leave you. It's about a God who promises he'll never forsake you. It's about a God who promises that he is before you, he is for you, and he will go before you, and he'll never, ever, ever fail you. That's what beautiful endings is about. And it's consistent. You know, I've spent my entire life looking for the big thing. I'm 43, and every birthday, my most depressing birthday was 24. I remember it because I remember thinking, well, I'm 24 and I still haven't preached the gospel to all the world. I'm never gonna get there. I remember feeling this way. I'm not even doing like evangelism, crusades. I'm not doing anything. I'm a waste. I was a youth pastor in a thriving church. Our church doubled in a year. Like we were moving into a high school, filling auditoriums, and I was like, I'm a waste. My life is over. I was so depressed. I always say, why are you so sad? I'm like, what do you mean, why am I so sad? Look at me, I'm 24 and I've got nothing to show for it. In my 30s, every birthday was a reminder of I haven't gotten where God's taken me yet. My entire life. This morning as I was leaving the house, I saw a picture of my boys, and they had, back when there was a Steak and Shake in Virginia Beach, for those of you who remember, my first restaurant in Missouri I ever went to when I went to school in Missouri was Steak and Shake, and never been the same. Chili on spaghetti. And they had their little Steak and Shake hats on that they give you. And they were laughing in the booth, and my wife took a picture, and I remember that because right before then we had gone to Pungo to take Christmas pictures for the church. So on the way back, we didn't have a lot of money, but a little bit we had. We said, let's stop at Steak and Shake. Let's make it a fun Saturday. And they're the cutest little squeezy cheekies. Oh my gosh, I just wanted to get into that picture and just suck on all their cheeks. Like they're just so adorable. And I was like, this is the big thing. This is the big thing. This is it. It's not about a stage. It's not about my influence. It's not about fulfilling the call of God on my life. I'm doing it every day because my kids are the big thing. They're not my everything. He is. But when I make decisions and I know it's in their best interest, it makes me be a lot more obedient because I realize that if I say no for me, it's actually hurting them. And I remember that day, and I remember sitting at that Steak and Shake and being depressed. I was going through a lot at the time, and I remember smiling as much as I could and being in the moment. I look back, and Satan didn't steal that moment from me because I can tell you I savored it, I remembered it. I hid a lot of those things from my family as much as I could. And I look back at the time we spent with our boys and the things that we did and the way that God moved in our family. And I can tell you that there's no big thing. This is the big thing. You'll spend your whole life waiting for it and it'll never arrive. And you'll look back and realize you missed it. You've missed the memories. You've missed the sweetness. You've missed the sweet spots. I think about the all-star tournaments that I've coached my kids in. You know, those age groups won't come back around. Caden will never be 12 years old again and will never be 7 hours from here playing on a really dense, hot Sunday afternoon in the middle of nowhere, Virginia, to walk off one of the best teams in the area, best teams in the state, and have the whole tournament watching us, cheering us on. People writing me, telling me they're watching a live stream, had my lefty throw the best game I've ever seen him throw, and I coached him for years. Watching him come off the field, having snapshots like that of these kids and the coaches, you'll never get those moments back again. Those are the big thing. Those are the big thing. You see, life wants to tell you to build for something, but it's because it'll make you miss what's right now, and you'll look back and have regrets of missing the big thing. But I can tell you, no matter where I've gone in life, no matter how many followers or how many have accepted or declined, or how many people have said they wanted to be a part of this church, or how many have left, I can tell you the big thing has never been based on the success of my life or the lack of it. The big thing has been sitting right where God has for me, loving my family and saying yes without hesitation when I know the Spirit has stirred. Because in order to have an end, you have to first have a beginning. How many of you are believing for God to do something big in your life? You really believe He can do it? He will. But it'll come at a time when you probably want it the least. A time where everything is going the best. But when your heart is for God and you're submitted to the DNA of how He works and you're submitted to the DNA of who He is, you realize that His timing's perfect. I always say God has never been late, but He's missed a lot of opportunities to be early. The reality is the good old days, they're actually now and tomorrow. and the day after. I'll just say this, don't stop and settle when God has so much more for your life. Settling, it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be so easy, but obedience will take you to the places that God's promised. Do you believe that? Obedience will take you to the places that he's promised. Big places, great places, unbelievable places. Will you stand with me today? I'm gonna pray over you. The worst response, I'm not gonna tell you how to respond to this message, but I am gonna say this. The worst response you could have to this message is feeling like you're a failure. That you've disobeyed God and you've positioned yourself to be an absolute disaster. That's a lie. That's not what this message is about. You know what this message is about? It's to encourage some of you that are on your journey not to stop. It's tough, and I know that things are unpredictable, but don't stop. And if you do, make it a quick stop. But definitely don't settle. Because when you settle, you start to do things you said you'd never do. You start to compromise in ways you said you never would, and you start to live a life that you said you'd never have. Don't stop and don't settle. Because God has something more for you than to die. You see, the thing about dying is you could have a disease in you and not know it until you get some blood work done. And some of you may not realize it, but maybe you're dying. Maybe you're dying because you're holding on to a situation that God's told you to let go of. I believe some people are holding on to prophetic words more than the word of God. Maybe those words haven't been tested the way you think. I believe some of you today, you're holding so tightly onto something and you're believing God's gonna come through, but I'm telling you, you may wreck your finances, you may wreck your marriage, you may wreck things around you. It may not be God. Saying, but he told me, but he said. Well, if you and your spouse are on the same exact place and you both are praying people, then hold on to it. But if there's the tiniest bit of indiscretion, then I am begging you to pause, not settle, pause. Keep walking towards the land of Canaan, but pause. One thing I've learned with my wife, a lot of times God will speak to me about something, and especially if it's something significant, and she'll say, don't talk to me anymore about it, because I want to hear God, because she's like, you could influence the Eskimo to buy ice. I said, well, thank you, baby. Appreciate that. She's like, no, but don't talk anymore, because I need to hear the word of the Lord. I need to hear God. And it's created a relationship where she's not dependent on what I'm hearing. More so, I'm dependent on what she's hearing. Because anytime God has spoken, he's been consistent. Anytime God has spoken, he's been consistent about, hey, I'm gonna confirm it. So I'm asking you, will you avoid the stoppage? Don't settle, because God has more for you. And we're believing for a beautiful ending. It has to start now. It has to start now. Let me pray over you. God, I just thank you so much. Thank you for every story. I thank you for every person. I thank you for every heart. I thank you for every lost, every piece that feels like it's just stuck. I thank you for those things, because God, sometimes they're the thing that saves us. Those things that feel like we're fighting against something to get any type of result are the things that save us from our own indiscretion of just running into places that you don't have. God, I ask you today that you would settle on this church, that you would encourage the people in this room that, God, it is a journey and it's hard. God, the deserts are hot, the mountains are cold, the rain, the wind, the snow, those things are real, but God, you never fail. You never fail in giving us shelter. You never fail in giving us food. You never fail in giving us nourishment. And Holy Spirit, I just ask you today, God, I ask you today to do the supernatural. Would you lift your hands if you're comfortable? Would you lift your hands today? And I just want it to be a sign of God. If you're calling me to this land, in my life, whatever it is you're asking, whatever it is you're pushing, I just say I receive it and I will do it. Whatever it is, God, I know it's scary. I get it, guys. I get it. I know it's scary. But you can trust God because he's with us and he never leaves us. Father, I pray over your church today. Oh God, I thank you for the stories. I thank you for the stories that go beyond the things that we could comprehend, the stories that go beyond the things that we could make up, the stories that go beyond the favor that we think we may have, the stories that go beyond the relationships that we built, but the ones that are given to us by the Most High God. Lord, the ones that say, go with everything that you have around you, and I want you to walk in faith. God, I pray today that we would see that you know that we are people you have called to do great things, people you've called to do miraculous things, people you've called to do things above and beyond anything we can begin to imagine. And I pray over your people right now that they would see that you are with them, that you love them, that your hand is on them, and that you will never, ever, ever leave them. You will never, ever, ever forsake them. You are God, and we declare right now, you are the King. And we surrender to you. Come on, let's sing this together. Let's make it our heart cry today. Come on, make it your heart cry today. Come on. Praise be to God. Come on, tell them.
I can't go back on yours. Oh, I never look back. No, I can't go back on yours. Praise be to God. Praise be to God. Praise be to God. You saved me from myself. Praise be to God, praise be to God. A new life I've been dealt. No, I'll never look back. No, I can't go back. I'm yours. I'll never look back. No, I can't go back. I'm yours. And praise be to God. Praise be to God. You saved me from myself. Praise be to God. Praise be to God.
Hoping for that Detroit win today. Hey, listen, little piece of advice as you're going. This one's free. The biggest thing about these seasons, honestly, be okay with mourning. Whenever God calls you to something, it's okay to have a mourning. Because what happens when you settle is that we don't go through the mourning process and we just get comfortable. It's okay. God's got great things for your life. And I believe in you. I'm excited about what God's doing in your life. Praying for you. We love you. And we'll see you back here right next week. Get in community. Let us know. Palms 97000. Love you guys. Have a great week. Hey, thanks so much for watching and listening today. Take a quick moment and hit the subscribe or follow button so you never miss when we go live or post new content. And drop a comment. Let us know where you're watching from, what stood out to you today, or how we can be praying for you. If you'd like to get connected, whether it's joining a group, serving on the dream team, or partnering with us through giving, we've made it super easy. Just text PALMS to 97000. That's it. One word, one text, and you're in. I want you to know this. God is doing something powerful in your life, and we're honored to be on the journey with you. So wherever you're watching from, whatever season you're in, we love you, we're here for you, and we can't wait to see all that God does in and through your life. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.